The motorboat slammed into the wooden dock, the impact vibrating through the pier. Kai, Candace, Sunny, and Sabrina stepped onto the splintered wood, their hands tight on luggage handles. Waiting under the palms, the others stood in a loose, jagged line. Serafina moved to the boat mirror, checking her reflection against the backdrop of the jungle. Luke stepped forward to assist, but his boot caught the edge of a heavy cooler. It tipped. A dozen pineapples burst from the crate, rolling across the planks and dropping into the churning surf with rhythmic splashes. Nobody laughed. The group stood in a tight, awkward circle, eyes darting from the rolling fruit to the faces of the newcomers. They traded thin, polite smiles, but the silence between them held a sharp, serrated edge. Each person scanned the others, calculating strengths and weighing weaknesses. They walked to the communal lounge in a single file, the distance between them feeling like a physical barrier. Inside, they found their seats, the island heat pressing against the windows as they waited for the next move. The island's silence died at dawn. A mechanical siren screamed across the beach, a jagged, relentless sound that tore through the villas. Kai was the first to hit the sand, his eyes wide and scanning the tree line. Within seconds, the others emerged, blinking in the harsh morning light. They converged on the shore where a pile of equipment sat waiting. Helmets and canisters lay in the sand, bright against the white grit. The rules were shouted over the lingering echo of the siren. Capture the flag, no mercy, no rules. The realization hit them like a physical weight. The facade of the luxury resort vanished in an instant. Kai met the eyes of Candace, Sunny, and Sabrina. He nodded once, a sharp, silent agreement to hold together against the rest. The air turned heavy with a new, sharper kind of tension. They grabbed the gear, the plastic weight of the markers grounding them in the reality of the coming violence. The whistle hung in the air, a final warning before the carnage began. They huddled, backs to each other, forming an unbreakable, frantic perimeter as the first shadows of the jungle began to stir. The whistle tore through the air. Kai bolted, legs churning through the dense underbrush as paint splatters peppered the trees. Candace dropped behind a hollow log, her marker barking rhythmically as she pinned Bastion down. A neon blue streak whizzed past Sabrina, missing her by an inch. She didn't flinch, eyes locked on the target. Sunny signaled from the periphery. Kai grabbed a handful of loose sand and hurled it into the thicket, the sudden grit clouding the vision of the opposing team. That was the opening. Sunny lunged from the shadows, fingers closing around the flag. She didn't look back. She sprinted, lungs burning, feet pounding the sand as the entire opposing team surged in pursuit. The base was 50 yards away, then 40. The timer ticked down, a dull hum in the distance. She pushed through the final stretch, legs heavy, breath ragged. With a final, desperate leap, she slammed the flag into the dirt. The buzzer sounded in that exact heartbeat. They had done it. They collapsed into the sand, gasping, the adrenaline finally fading as the silence of the island returned. They crowded into the small, humid interview booth, the air thick with the smell of paint and sweat. Candace wiped a thick streak of yellow from her cheek, her hand trembling slightly as she recounted their formation. Sabrina leaned back against the wall, laughing at the memory of Rowan slipping into the mud. But the laughter felt hollow. The door opened and a producer stepped in, placing a sleek tablet in front of each person. The room went silent. The screens glowed, demanding choices that would define the rest of the season. Kai looked at the device, his thumb hovering over the glass. There was no more cover fire, no more distractions, just cold, hard decisions. He looked at Candace, then at Sunny. The trust they had built during the sprint was now a currency to be spent. One by one, they tapped. The clicks were soft, almost imperceptible, but they sounded like hammers in the quiet booth. The alliances locked into place. The dynamic shifted, hardening around the table. They stood up, the game of capture the flag over, replaced by a more dangerous game of strategy and exclusion. They stepped out of the booth, no longer just a group of survivors, but a collection of defined, competing factions. A long table waited on the sand, illuminated by low, flickering lanterns. The production crew retreated, leaving the contestants to the sound of the tide. A chef appeared, placing plates of seared scallops and gold leaf steak before them. No one spoke. The clink of silver against porcelain was the only sound in the open air. Kai kept his eyes on his plate, feeling the weight of the new alliances across the table. Every movement was measured. Every glance was guarded. The meal was a performance of normalcy, but the air remained stagnant, heavy with the unspoken consequences of the votes cast just moments earlier. As the moon climbed high, the group rose in unison, leaving the table half-finished. They walked back toward the villas, the manicured paths giving way to the encroaching shadows of the island interior. The sounds of the jungle grew louder, a cacophony of insects and rustling palm fronds that swallowed their footsteps. They reached their doors and went inside. The paintball markers were still leaning against the walls, bright streaks of color against the dark wood. Each of them lay down, the silence of the room punctuated by the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves, waiting for the inevitable whistle that would shatter the morning.